G'day guys, I've written some software that can automate the conversion of content that is currently in Canvas across to equivalent content in Moodle. That software effectively reads the structures of Canvas and makes equivalent Moodle files. And I can get the content-only component of a Canvas course into Moodle in about an hour, which is pretty remarkable. When I was doing this sort of more manually through kind of effectively a copy and paste exercise, it was taking 15 or 16 hours per course. So, to get that down from 16 hours to 1 hour, I think is a bit of a triumph. Let's look at how it works. So within Canvas content is arranged into modules, and those modules have pages. And so this is equivalent in Moodle to a Moodle book and the chapters within a book. So first of all, I need a mechanism to get the content out of Canvas, and Canvas provides that to me. If I click the Export Course Content button, effectively what will happen is it will zip that up into a zip file which has all of the bits that I'll need for the next step. And in fact, in many respects, this is the slowest component. But you can take 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how large that course is, to create that backup. But let me show you what you get when you finally download the backup and just unzip it. In essence, on your computer now, you have an index file. And if I open that up, this is effectively navigable content that lives now on my computer. And again, it reflects the modules and the pages in those modules. And my software will effectively convert those into books. However, what's really interesting about that content is the content exists that makes up these pages doesn't exist as separate files. It's all encoded in one single file, this course data file. And if I open that up in a kind of a sensible editor, what you see when you look at that course data file is it's basically got a whole lot of instructions to the software about how to display the content. But there's some problems here. If I look at this material, before I do the conversion, let me just show you again in the browser. If I walk through the content, there are some things which I think are problematic about this content. What you're seeing here, each of these elements is effectively a table that's being used for layout and design. Tables are very dangerous, really, as layout instruments. They create accessibility and compliance issues, and it puts you at, I think, a legal risk to use the content in the way that it is at the moment. It also has some other quirks to it. So for instance, the files that are here, and so when you export, you get all these files, have got some very, very odd file names that really shouldn't be. So for instance, let's start learning with a talking mark in the middle of the name. There's others with a superscript meters squared, and it's got the two above the line. There's basically some dodgy stuff in here, and so we need to account for that in the conversion process. So what the software will do is a whole lot of triaging and tidying up, and behind the scenes you don't need to kind of see all of that part, but know that it's basically exercising some demons that are in this content that really need to be dealt with before you bring it across to Moodle. All right, so let's have a look. The way the software effectively works is it reads this magic file. I'm going to run it now, and it's done. Now, you didn't really see anything happen, but in the background, what's happened is it's created this folder called converted. Inside that, you'll see that it's created these zip files, and each one of these zip files effectively is a Moodle book. It's ready now for uploading to Moodle. But before we do that, let's just have a look. It's also created this preview file, which I'll open. And effectively what it's done is given you a kind of a try before you buy. This is basically joined end to end all of that content into one page. It just allows you to do a quick eyeball scan before you go through the next step of uploading into Moodle, just to make sure that everything looks fine and there's no particular sort of problems with the content. But I'm ready now for the next step to effectively upload this into Moodle. So I'll jump over to a Moodle course. I'm going to create a set of Moodle books, one for each of those zip files. So I go to create learning activity. I'm going to create a book. I give that book a title. Now, if I'm being smart, I would go back to this preview and just copy the the book titles from here because they're all in here. Let me have a look. So this is, I'll start with book 2 because book 1's got kind of no content in. So I'm going to use book 2 as my example, Introduction to Ease, because you can kind of see it's got some stuff in it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Moodle. I'm going to give this book a title. I'm giving it no content at the moment. I'm just going to save and display. And this is the kind of the interesting step. In order to bring that content in, you go across to a feature called, under book administration, called import chapter. It really should read import chapters, plural, because this is going to create all of the chapters in one step. So I click on import chapter. What I need to do is under this type, I choose the option which says each folder represents one chapter. And then I grab the zip file that was created in this conversion process. Bear with me. So it's in this converted folder and it was book 2. I think I'm going to use this as my first example. Bring that in, hit import, and it's basically done now. There we go. And now I have a fully navigable book. These are all of the, what were pages in Canvas and now all chapters in Moodle. And you can kind of see that these things which were previously tables, like for instance, this was a table. Now it's what's called a card. It's fully accessible. You don't have all those accessibility compliance features. There are other things that it's done, like go through and change the heading structures so that they're appropriate for Moodle. Again, that's part of our web content accessibility compliance. Now, this is not to say that this is an entirely foolproof process. So these images, when they were created, they don't always have alternative text, and sometimes that alternative text is a bit dodgy. Computers aren't smart enough to kind of look at this image and describe it. However, there are tools in Moodle itself that allow us now to go through and do that triage. So rather than trying to invest a lot of effort at the technology end, why not now use Moodle's own tools? So we've got under the reports, bear with me, course administration, and under reports, we've got the accessibility report. It will list here any images that might be missing alternative text. By the way, the reason this number is so large is I've actually imported all of the content. I did that before the recording. So this is basically all the issues with all of the content. 49 is not so bad because once we're here, we can basically quickly look at the image and we can make decisions about how to describe that and put it in here. Or if the image is just purely decorative, we click on the in decorative. So there is some necessary work at the Moodle end, but considering all of the effort to get it to that point was taking me 15 hours doing it manually, I think that this is a pretty low bar to cross by comparisons. The software's not completely rock solid yet. It only runs on my computer, so you guys can't actually run it. But I think it's done a really necessary proof that this is a solvable problem.